Coming live from Miami, Florida, USA is our guest tonight. Welcome to this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through the industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Jake Thomas, personal coach and founder of Live Like Jake. Welcome to the show, Jake.
Thanks for having me today, AJ. Appreciate it. Thanks for being up late. I know it's past some bedtimes out east, so it's good to be on the show, man.
You are welcome. Welcome to the show. Welcome to India and welcome to so many places. This is an important day for us because you will be talking about life. And a lot of people, especially youngsters, would like to benefit from the way you have lived your life, the difficulties you have overcome. And now you are telling and teaching people how to live life like Jake. But let me ask my question in this manner. Not so long ago, there was a time which you called that you were a junkie, you were a drunkard, whatever problems you were facing, you were trying to solve it, but you could not. And there was a time when you almost wanted to move away from the life that you were having. That was a very, very unfortunate moment. And it can be a very unfortunate or difficult moment for many people even now. But then you took that step, and then today you are living a life, living happy, healthy, wealthy in mind, body, and soul. Many people are not that fortunate. Now you tell people how to live life like Jake. And here you are, Jake Thomas, in front of you. So I want to understand from you, Jake, what is it for millions and millions, especially youngsters who may be passing through the difficult moments that you passed through and overcame it. What is it that they should be careful of, that they don't come to the moment that you so strongly passed out and living life and making others live life in a very happy one? What should they be careful of? Because you are a Marine. Not everybody is a Marine. They do not have that toughness. If you can face such problems, anybody else can, and everybody is not Jake. Please tell what should be careful of and how you build a life from the time that we are talking about. And then you are in front of me. We are talking about how to live life like Jake. That is you. So many things. It's a long question, but this is the way I wanted to put these thoughts. Maybe very random, but it's okay. It's a podcast. I talk from the heart, and it's all about living life from the heart. It's over to you. Take your time. Several things there. Take your time. Take your time to answer at your own pace.
Well, it's a great question. First, AJ, multi-part question, like you said. And it starts with belief. It starts with the power of self-belief. It's the number one core value, or I should say it's at the top of my core values sheet. Belief in myself. And I say that because no matter what I was going through, no matter how bad it got, no matter how depressed I got, no matter how thwarted my mind, how sad, how angry at the world, how much of a victim's mentality I had assumed as opposed to an abundance mentality, how much I felt that the world was happening to me, or that life was happening to me as opposed to happening for me, or that I was creating things, that I was enacting changes. Rather, I felt that things were happening again to me, that I was the recipient of negativity. So all of these thoughts were about me projecting what I perceived onto the world. And if I can say one thing to anyone out there, it's that the world is not as you, AJ, as me, as we, as us, as anyone. It is not as we perceive it. It is as we are. Everything about the world is a reflection back upon us of ourselves, man. So if you are right,
your world will be right. If you're having a bad time at school or in your relationships, interpersonal, possibly romantic, professional, even if work seems to be a mess and in disarray, you can't seem to get that right job. You can't get that girl. You can't attract that guy. Maybe you can't keep that girl. You can't keep that guy. You can't seem to hold a job. You can't seem to hold on to friends. You can't think clearly. It's so easy to blame the external stimulus or this external stimuli, rather, because it takes radical candor and humility to acknowledge our own faults. We don't want to say we're wrong. We don't want to say we might be a little messed up. Rather, it's a lot easier to blame other people, to blame our parents, to blame our families, our friends for sure, right? To blame the world, blame society. And that is what I was doing. Exactly the points you're touching on of where I was, how I was feeling, why I was feeling the way I was because I finally looked into that mirror with radical candor, so brutal honesty, and I took accountability for my life. I took ownership for my actions, right? It was no more, it's their fault. It's the military's fault. It's my family's fault. It's because my parents got divorced. This is why I'm depressed. This is why I have binge eating disorder. This is why I can't hold a job. This is why I'm angry. It's their fault. No. Victor Frankel, famous Holocaust survivor, in his book talking about the last human freedom is how we choose to perceive something or how we choose to allow the external to affect us, the actions of another to affect us. And in his case, being a prisoner in a Nazi Holocaust concentration or Nazi concentration camp, that's a pretty serious test of that philosophy, I would say. Might be easier said than done, most people could say, but I would say if the gentleman who put it to the test in the ultimate space, and if he is able to do that, if Nelson Mandela, if Anwar Sadat, if your own Gita is the Stoic, the famous Indian Stoic, is able to say the same in regards to perspective, why can't we? So the practicality or implementation of that may be sought as difficult, but it also may be sought as easy. What is easy for you might be very difficult for me, and what is easy for me might be very difficult for you. But the fact of that idea is simple. Simple is objective. Simple is a matter of fact. Something either is simple or it is not. That is not a matter of opinion. Now, whether it's easy or difficult to enact that simplicity, that's up to the person, the individual, the subjective. But the simplicity of it is pure. And what the simplicity is simply the perspective, the mindset, positive self-talk, understanding conscience congruence, meaning living in alignment with what you feel to be right within your character, in accordance with your own principles, living a life which you are proud of in order to create a future you would want to live in.
Right, Jake. Right. I was just listening, and if I was not forced to ask a question because I'm hosting this particular, I would just want to listen because that is what helps you learn. But my job is also to make sure that others learn from the guest, the master that we have, and they learn as best as possible. So, in terms for the youngsters, especially who are passing through a lot of difficult time their own way in several parts of the world, the way they see it, their lives are, almost uh, imprisoned in many a times, either in their cell phones, either in the work that they do, or imprisoned in their own thoughts for whatever reasons. You pass that particular time. What is it that you found what is it that led to you to look within yourself and retrace your steps, come back to life, live a life, build a life, live a life as an example. And that is why we are having this sticker running about living life like Jake. So, how was that? What was the positive suddenly you found in yourself? What is it that people can look within themselves when there is no, they are just in a tunnel, they can't see any light?
Mm.
How do they help themselves? By thinking the positives that they have within, that it's not about anybody else, it's about them. What is it that helped you? What is it that you want to tell the people who might be in the same situation that you were once in?
One thing. There is one thing. The single most thing that we can do as human beings to have the most profound impact on our health is controlling what we put into our mouths. That is how I unlocked my mind, AJ, through nutrition. Literally through nutrition. People say, my God, how could he be so stupid? That's ridiculous. That's absurd. I will say it again. The single most impactful thing we can do as human beings in regards to our health is controlling what we put into our mouths. Health. What is health? How do we define health? I'm not talking about physical health only. I'm talking about mental, emotional, psychological, spiritual, all forms of health, the full gamut. And as far as in seeing yourself, those feelings you touched on of inadequacy, of depression, of confusion, uncertainty, you cannot see the person who is your potential if you are blinded. You cannot feel the person who is your potential if your senses are deadened. You cannot understand, you certainly cannot believe your potential as this person if your nerves are suppressed and deadened because of your body and your being in a deficit by the way it's being nourished. And I don't just mean with food. I mean with your environment, with the people you hang around with, the circles you keep, the things you listen to, the things you watch, whatever you might subscribe to, any type of consumption. But the number one thing that we can do to have the most profound impact on our health is controlling what we put into our mouths. And through food is how I unlocked my mind. I swear to God. And through food is how I now coach other people to unlock their minds. The rest of the steps, the process, the reading, the writing, the meditation, the exercise, the self-improvement, the personal growth and development does not happen without the right nourishment. Because again, you can't see it, you can't feel it, and you certainly won't believe it. So through food, I have unlocked my mind, and through food is how I help others unlock theirs. Because again, the single most impactful thing we can do in regards to our health is controlling what we put into our freaking mouths.
Right. I fully understand you, what you are saying about nutrition. I fully believe it. Even in India, there's an old saying that the type of food you eat is what you become, what your thoughts become. This is, you have just, put it the same thing in your own way. And I fully believe it. Now, and I'm sure a lot of people have started understanding this, believing it. But then, how did you actually get started on this? It almost, because it sounds simple, it sounds very easy, but very difficult at the same time. And when you have that situation of binge eating and drinking, and when life seems to be going out of control, then even the simplest thing looks very difficult. How did you start doing it and taking each step at a time? That will be very helpful.
I always grew up loving classical literature, historical literature, philosophy, archaeology, paleontology, and Stoicism. And even throughout my time against the odds and all the things you were speaking about, I still maintain this fascination with conventional and contemporary and classical literature. And I always saw it as cool. I always saw the stories as things that I look up to and places that I could draw inspiration from. When I started to get into the fitness industry after I had gotten clean from drugs and alcohol the first time, because I had several lapses, I basically repurposed my energy and my addiction into this. So, addiction, let's talk about that first. I don't believe in addiction. I believe in obsession. I believe in extremism. I believe in infatuation. But to call oneself an addict, I believe is an excuse. I believe it's a way to let myself off. Now, are there addictive substances? Can things be addictive based on their chemical compounds and the way they can manipulate brain and hormonal function? Yes. However, the term addict, I believe, is much more dawned out of convenience than it is out of truth. Why? Because it's easy to say the drugs made me do it. It's easy to say the alcohol made me do it. It's easy to say the gambling made me do it. AJ, there are very few people on this planet who have ever had a gun put to their heads and said, you will take this drink right now or I will kill you and your family. You will do these drugs right now or I will kill you and your family. You will sleep with this woman right now and cheat on your wife or I will kill you and your family, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I would like to, I don't want to see it, but I know that list is very small, if it exists at all. So for anyone to call themselves addicts, I just think it's a very slippery slope. And often the easiest way is to say, the blank made me do it, thus I am powerless to these things. The hard thing to do is to look in the mirror and say, no one put a gun to my head. I consciously, premeditatively made these decisions and I acted on them. Okay, I did that. I didn't blame anything. I didn't blame anyone else. I'm saying it and I did it. Okay. That alone gives you confidence. That statement, that kind of acknowledgement, that kind of accountability, that kind of radical candor gives your soul cleansing. Even if the acts were terrible, at least you are having the integrity, the intestinal fortitude to stand up in the midst of that adversity and say, I did this. Again, back to my core values. One of the core values I live by is always do the right thing no matter what. And doing the right thing is being accountable, acknowledging your faults, learning from failure. How do you learn from failure if you're saying you didn't fail? You have to accept that blame first and foremost, I believe, wholeheartedly. So for me, getting clean, acknowledging that I was messing up, but those decisions were mine, that obsession that I had with drugs and drinking, that energy that I was putting forth into alcohol, into women, into consumerism and buying things, material things, it was energy. I was trying to give energy into these places because I was unhappy with my own life. Thus, I didn't want to give energy to it. I was trying to give energy elsewhere because I wasn't whole and wholesome within my heart. I wasn't happy with life. So I was trying to let out energy in other places, wastefully, of course, but nonetheless. So once I realized when those things were no longer in my life, wow, I have all this energy. What can I do with it? Well, I found health. I found fitness. I found nutrition. I found these new outlets. Some could say that I am an extremist. Some could say that I am a radical. I'd much rather be a radical for my health and the promotion of that and the interest of that than a radical for cocaine, than a radical for alcohol. I would rather and will forever be rather hated for what I am than to be loved for what I am not. And I was very loved by many people being that person, that other person, but I hated it. And I'd rather be hated, thought to be controversial as I am now, thought to be somewhat radical as I am now, fine. because I have honesty in my heart about it and I know how it makes me feel, because that is vitality in its essence. So all I did was repurpose energy. And by repurposing energy, I found life. I found health. I found a new fondness of living. So to your point about simple, yes, it is, again, simple. Simple is a matter of fact. It's an objective, unbiased statement. Easy or difficult? Sure. Was it difficult to walk away from drugs and try to find new outlets for things and not hang out with those same people that were bogging me down and not drink? Yes. But just the same as English was your second language, it was not your first language. You had to learn that. A
Yes.
language is simple, or rather, the learning of a language is a simple process, but it takes repetition. It takes time. I guarantee your English is better than my Indian. That's for sure, you know? But if I had to do it, there is a process for it. There is school. There is a curriculum. There is a way it gets done. I would have to come to the country and really learn the language. That's the greatest form of acculturation, is direct immersion. It's the same thing with this. I took it as life or death. I told myself, I have to do this because I know I can't go back there. I know where this road leads. I know where it was going. I know where I was going. Waking up too many times, having my brother come home from law school one day and tell me, hey, did you know that it's a mandatory 10-year sentence in Louisiana, because I'm from New Orleans? It's a mandatory 10-year sentence if you are in possession of a firearm and a controlled dangerous substance at the same time, otherwise called a CDS. I always carried a firearm in Louisiana, AJ. And during my times when I was using, I always had bags of drugs on me, usually cocaine. For years, every day, years. So to think that I was basically dodging the bullet of a mandatory minimum 10-year sentence, let alone other things that could have gotten added on to that by way of negligence and homicide, or, vehicular homicide, or driving under the influence, or anything else, manslaughter, I don't know, that could have been tacked on. I mean, my life would have been fucking done, man. Wasted. And when my brother told me that, it was a big lightning bolt to me. And that's what started my wake-up process. And I thanked God, I thanked the Creator, the higher power, that I did not succumb to that. But at the same time, it wasn't enough to totally get me clean. It still took time, just like learning a language. It still took time and reps, just like learning a language. If you can look at everything like a system in order to get to your goal, that's the key. Why? Because we do not rise to the level of our goals. We fall to the strengths of our systems. And it took my system to get me there. And that's what keeps me going now.
Right. And then in 2017, you founded Life Like Jake.
Exactly.
How did you get this idea? And, looking at your life and then the new life, and you wanted to add people, make people's life better, the best version of themselves. How did you find this idea?
I didn't grow up in a great place. On the surface, or to the untrained eye, it was the perfect place. White, suburbia, America. I never wanted for anything as a kid. We had money. We weren't like super rich, but we were certainly not poor. I had loving parents, but there was a lot of infidelity in my family that people did not know about. My mother left when I was very young, and I was with my father and his wife, of whom I had an affair with, and no one around us knew about that, but I did as a child. And I lived with this lie, or their lie, and pretending to be fine and amongst all the socialites in the city. And every one of my friends that ever met them didn't know that and assumed them to be happy and healthy and everything okay. And I lived with this lie of covering up for them, and for years, decades. And that's why I left, to go to the military, because the military looked more fun, or more loving and nurturing than where I was currently living. And throughout my time of being on the road or traveling or living elsewhere in the world, looking for jobs, what I was looking for was purpose. What I was looking for was something that made me feel right, something that made me feel whole, that I was doing something good, not for me, but for the betterment of others. Something that gave me that type of self-satisfaction because it was a belief in something bigger than myself. And I didn't have that with the work that I was doing. I had fun working in a bar, but I knew that was a job. I had fun working in the oil field, but I knew that was a job. I had fun working for Ralph Lauren as a compliance officer, but I knew it was a job. I had fun working in real estate. And when I was in real estate, I started to feel this servitude, selflessness, helping people find shelter in homes and create memories. I was starting with something as far as in service, but still it wasn't pure. It wasn't my way still, and what I had envisioned of the service, that the capacity of service that I would be able to provide. Meaning I saw something more holistic, more all-encompassing, and more not about a product a la a home, but something about the individual inside them. Because all this time, throughout those years from when that little boy started and started seeing these things with his family, he didn't know it, but he was building the business all along. I didn't know it, AJ, but everything about how I grew up and all those steps, all those failures, all those difficulties, all those adjustments were stepping stones. They were building blocks. They were theories to be tested. You know, I'm a huge fan of Thomas Edison, the inventor of the light bulb. But better than the invention of the light bulb, per his quote about it, what did you learn from inventing the light bulb? It's not that I invented how to make a light bulb. It's the 10,000 times I failed trying to make the light bulb. 10,000. So, hey, Jake, can you tell me how to make a light bulb? Yeah, but wouldn't you rather see number 7,412 of how not to do it? Or number 3,506 of how not to do it? Or number 411, how not? I mean, I have a whole book of ways not to do it, right? And I loved that about Edison. Even as a kid, again, I loved archaeology, paleontology, Egyptology, and science, physics. And I loved that fact as a child. And so when I got old enough and around 2015 and into 16, because the company started in 2017, I started to see these memories, these experiences, some of them you could call failures, not as negatives, but rather I was like, oh my God, these are my 10,000 ways on not to do it, like my hero, Thomas Edison. And so as I started to feel better, as I started to heal myself from within, as I started to implement these habits habitually and realized the benefit that I was receiving, why wouldn't this work for someone else? Why wouldn't this work for other people? I'm a human being. They're human beings. We all have problems. I like to know, I think I have less or more than anyone else. I don't know, but I feel like with communication, with application, with consistency and dedication, why wouldn't this work? The theory seemed to me to be sound. And so I started to test it on friends, on family. Hey, you know, it would just come up in conversation. Well, what's going on? People weren't being listened to. And that's a key right there, AJ. Many people just want to be freaking heard, man. They don't get heard, listened to by their spouse, by their parents, by their teachers, by their friends. You know, like there's an old joke about psychiatry that we take advice from our friends for free, but we pay someone to listen to us instead.
Right.
We take bad free advice from our friends, but we have to pay someone to listen to us that tells us nothing. The paradox of that. And so I started to test these models and theories with friends, family, acquaintances all over the world, men and women, anybody, different ages, shapes, and sizes. And I started to get data from that of like, okay, this works for him. This did not work for her. Okay, this works for them. Okay, cool. Da, da, da. And I started to build this understanding. And what it came down to was like, my God, it is this simple. Eat these foods, read these books, do these habits, you feel better. Period.
Right. Right. I'm still trying to, as I said, I would still prefer to continue to listen to what you are saying and not ask any question. But
Okay.
I still have to ask.
No
And
problem. No problem.
because it is about people. So tell us, what do you do at Life Like Jake? You are the CEO, you are the founder. What do you do exactly so that people can connect with you? They can also benefit the best that you have to offer. And who are the people who this program is for? Who who is it that they can build this work for? Who can connect with you?
Well, first of all, the work and the program is for anyone, literally anyone, any age, anywhere in the world, any sex, any orientation, any preference, any ability, any inability, any disability, any shape, any size, any color. I have as young as 16 years old, a high school student in California, and as old as 72, a grandmother, a mother of two, with osteoporosis and recently recovering from a hysterectomy, and now is stronger and healthier than she'd ever been, and reversed her osteoporosis and her arthritis. The 16-year-old boy was failing in many of his classes in school and not doing the greatest in athletics as he was trying to aspire to be in the soccer team. And now he's making almost straight A's in school. He's an all-star on the varsity soccer team as a sophomore, I believe, and reads constantly. He writes book reports on his own for fun because he has become obsessed with the knowledge, and he has become obsessed with what he is gaining from the knowledge, from the habits, from the routine, by realizing through self-actualization, which is what this is about. This is about self-mastery, AJ, the power that is in that. So whether it's the 16-year-old, the 72-year-old grandmother, the Marine special operators that I work with, the Army special forces that I work with, the average Joe, the average Jane, housewives, soccer moms, stay-at-home dads, corporate executives, small business owners, companies themselves. I speak openly to businesses, to coach, agents, real estate brokers, et cetera, teams, to be able to understand unit cohesiveness, how to act with more synergy in order to accomplish a task together, and how they are only as strong as their weakest link, and especially to the leadership to understand that there are no bad teams, but only bad leaders. So when people are having toxic issues in their companies, I first speak to the leaders. I go to the leadership first. When they, my employees, we can't do this. My employees, boy, that's a lot of blame game there. If your employees are acting XYZ, I'd like to first look at the top and see what our executives are doing. What kind of example is being set there? What kind of lead from the front mentality are you demonstrating for others to follow? So whether it's an individual, whether it's a youth, whether it's someone elder, again, ability, disability, inability matters not, because it's not about the physical. The physical is a byproduct, literally. It's about becoming healthier. It's about feeling better. It's about getting stronger. And guess what happens, AJ? When you become healthier, feel better, and get stronger, you inevitably look better. The problem is most people think it's this way. Hey, Jake, can you help me gain biceps? Hey, Jake, can you help me tone my body? Hey, Jake, can you help me get a butt? You come to me with a superficial request, I'm going to tell you, you can go somewhere else. That's not what I do. You come to me and say, I want to become healthier. I want to cure my depression. I want to get rid of my anxiety. I want to get rid of my autoimmune diseases. I want to unlock my mind to understand my true potential, to be able to see things that I can't see right now, to be able to command my present in order to create my future, to remove the fear or regret I have of the past in order to, again, focus on the present to create the future that I desire. That's what I do. This is about self-mastery. And anyone in the world is open to that candidacy. Anyone in the world can eat this diet that I recommend as well, which is the beauty, again, and why the nutrition is the pillar the bedrock, the foundation, the non-negotiable element. Because someone could come to me and say, well, I can't do your program because I have a broken leg, or I'm too old and I can't get out of my walker, or I can't do this. You have to eat, don't you? You can still read, can't you? You can still meditate, can't you? You can still do introspective work, can't you? Right now, I'm dealing with a client. He's an amazing guy, but he is fighting, literally fighting the inner work because he is focusing on the exterior. And he's chasing that sense of physicality and what he thinks it will bring to him as far as in satisfaction. And I relate to that so much because I was just like that. I am still at times just like that, where I'm thinking my body is first before my mind, before my soul, before my conscience, thinking that the exterior is what matters most, what I will be what will be most appealing about me will be my shell. I need my shell to be polished. They need to see that I'm in good shape and that, I've got abs and all these superficial things. But it's about here, man. It's this and creating this flow and cultivating this beautiful glow from within. Because once that happens, all of this happens. It becomes, again, a byproduct of the work that's been done inside, and everything about you that's on the exterior is simply a reflection on the inside. So to simply answer your question, anyone in the world is a candidate for this program. Just like on the Statue of Liberty in America, bring me you're tired, you're weak, you're hungry, you're poor. I don't care what your problem is. I don't care what your pain point is. I don't care what troubles you, what bothers you. I'm here to listen. I'm here to help you find a solution. I will not give you answers. Let me say that clearly. I do not make anything, AJ. I do not have a product. I don't sell anything. It's about you. It's about you having the moments of self-actualization, you understanding your individuality, your brilliance. I help remove these blocks that are covering up the diamond that is you inside, that is ridden with carbon and dust. So it cannot shine. It cannot be as brilliant as it was born to be, that it innately has within it. But it's always been about you, not about what I'm going to teach you like I'm freaking Yoda. I'm not. I am a guide to help you realize yourself. And once people start to do that, it just compounds in interest of feeling and productivity. And then they just fly on their own. I'm a big fan of the story of Peter Pan. You know this story, of course. And the way that Peter and all the other lost boys learn how to fly is by thinking happy thoughts. It's a perfect fairy tale story, right? Think a happy thought and you can fly. All of us know how to fly. All of us have this power inside. All of us have the same limitless potentiality inside. But many of us have just simply forgotten how to fly because of life, circumstance, environment, commitment, sacrifice, death, etc., etc., etc. And I help people re-find their happy thoughts, and then they fly on their own.
Wonderful. Wonderful. And how do they connect with you? What's the best way?
So my most personal side is always demonstrated on Instagram and YouTube. I'm on both of those platforms regularly. You can apply to work with me on my website at lifelikejake.com. I review every application myself. I respond to all the messages myself. My business line is there. You can call it. I will answer. You can send me any message on any of those platforms. I don't have anyone else responding for me or bots. It's always me. Sometimes, a lot of the times when people reach out to me, I actually send voice memos back to them, and I send videos even back to people. And people will often say, wow, I can't believe you actually sent a voice note or a video or you called me, like, yeah, because I know the power of what this is. And I know when I hear positivity in someone, and I know what I hear potential in someone when they talk about themselves and their problems and they disclose things that are sensitive and show their vulnerability. And so I encourage anyone listening to hit me up. Don't be afraid. If you have intuition, if you have feeling, act on it. If you listen to they, if you listen to them, if you continue to subscribe and waste that precious and valuable brain ether on things that you know is not right for you, you're going to stay right where you are because you're going to keep getting what you've gotten as long as you keep doing what you've done. Why is that? Well, I'll leave you with one thing, AJ. I'll say that one of the hardest things we deal with as human beings is trying to convince our minds of something that our hearts know to be a lie.
Right, right. My last question to you, Jake, is during that point in time, and I read it out, you say that you had to create the man that I never had in my own life, a hero, fully become him, and now give that person away to the world. Now you are that person. And you say, I am finally alive, living happy, healthy, and wealthy in mind, body, and soul. And now you are giving that man to the world. How do you feel about this whole journey of that whole stuff of finding yourself, not looking for a light at the end of the tunnel, but glowing in your own light to become the light in the tunnel itself, which will lead you outside the tunnel? How do you feel? How do you find that whole process? Secondly, what is it that you seek now from here on?
It's great questions. Well, first, it's the work, it's the journey. You know, love the book, The Alchemist, and the journey about searching and wandering the desert and looking for the pyramids, right? And all the while, he's ignoring the tricks, the clues, right? He's focused on the girl. He's focused on the pyramids. He's not focused on the steps right in front of him where the greatest benefit and knowledge is to be gained and attained. And so for me, creating the man I never had in my life out of necessity in order to become that man and then live as that man and then to give him away to the world is not, or at least I thought it was a goal. Yes, I thought there was a finish line there and then I would get there and be like, okay, I'm here. Great. But that is constant work. Constant. That is always cultivating him, always nurturing him, always polishing him, right? Making sure every day, just like in the military when we'd have to wake up and a lot of times you have to literally polish brass in certain places, right? The flagpole, this or that, the windows, everything's always immaculately clean. Things that we really valued as sacred, you know, our flags, poles, and how we hoist and where we raise colors is a very sacred space. Every day that would get polished, the brass, right? The stainless steel would be cleaned of fingerprints every single day. The flag's not going anywhere. The pole was there, it was placed, and now it's about maintaining that cleanliness, keeping it pristine and polished. By creating this man, becoming this man, now it's about maintaining him, keeping him polished, keeping him pristine. How do I do that? Through the work, through the habits. Eat these foods, read these books, do these things. Good thoughts, good deeds, living in conscience congruence. So it's constant work, AJ. That's the trick. That's the key because it's the work that instills the worth. It's not about the race to the top. I've never climbed Everest, but you know, once you get up there, it's like, all right, amazing, da 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 da. Okay, now we got to go back down. And the descent of a climb is often as hard, if not more difficult. The same thing back in the desert. In The Alchemist, he gets to the pyramids. Okay, I guess that was cool. Now what? You didn't see the treasure chest under the palm trees in the oasis? Why? Because you were too focused on the goal and you weren't focused on the steps during the work. It never gets better than during the work. Why? Because with the work, you're taking the steps towards self-mastery. And my brother, the road to self-mastery is paved in suffering. In a good way. The greatest Stoics, enlightened minds, thought leaders, theologians, and philosophers have used three things throughout life, throughout millennium, to enact a higher form of consciousness, to speak to God, to find their power and inner peace. Even Gita, Gandhi, Vishnu, extended treks, prolonged fasting, and isolation. So for me, I'm constantly challenging myself with one, two, if not all of those congruently. And it's not about wrist cutting for suffering. It's not about masochism or sadism for suffering. No, it's about understanding that through abrasiveness, through difficulty is triumph. Greatness is never attained as a gift. It's got to be earned. And thank God for that. Because what would the value of that greatness be if it were not earned? It would be worthless. Why are diamonds so rare, so valuable? Because they're scarce. Why is caviar so expensive? Because it's scarce. Why is a Rolls-Royce Phantom so expensive? Because it's scarce. Scarcity, rarity, these are things that create and drive demand, value, perceived value. It's the same thing with greatness, with potential, with an envision of ourselves, of superiority. Oh my God, I see myself in this light, but it's a fraction. It's a small glimpse. So how do I get there? It starts with one step. The road to the marathon, the training for medical school, the beginning of the military career, the infancy of a parent, the start of a corporate job. It doesn't matter. It's all the same. It is the beginning with the first step, and then putting steps together, and then putting a process together, and then putting consistency amongst that, and then putting passion into the work. Because again, it's the work that instills the worth. And if you look to the pyramids as your solace, or think that's what's going to be keeping you there with an eye on the prize, you're going to miss the whole ride. And it's the ride that's worth all the while.
On this note, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KJ Masterclass. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.